Hey kiddos, I'm back. So, when I was a kid, I used to be like a really big reader. Like, I always had a book in my hand to the point where, like, when I was in fourth grade, my teacher had to give me my own little book basket to keep my books in so that I didn't read during math class. When I was in ninth grade, that all changed because I had a study hall teacher who just wouldn't let me go to the library unless I had a pass from the library. Like, dude, I have 4 minutes in between classes. When do you think I'm gonna get this pass you speak of if you don't give it to me? So ever since then, I just haven't really read any books unless it was for school. And even then, that was a big ask. To put it into perspective, last time I was a consistent book reader, we were still in the Obama administration. Sabrina Carpenter was known for being on Girl Meets World on Disney Channel, and Taylor Swift just really wanted to be excluded from this narrative. But now, in 2025, reading is cool again. Book Talk, BookTube, and Bookstagram dominate pop culture right now. And within this trend of reading is the trend of specifically reading romantasy, a genre that consists of both romance and fantasy, which was great news to me because that's like all I could ask for in a series. Give me a romance, but don't make the romance the whole story. That's all I want. And the author and book series that is ubiquitous with these trends right now is Sarah J. Maas and her ACOTAR series, or Court of Thorns and Roses. And I was intrigued by this, so I went to the book loft with my boyfriend and I was going to get ACOTAR, but then something else caught my eye. See, ACOTAR is like the only thing that everyone is reading right now. And I was kind of more concerned with the hype of where the author was concerned, so I decided to start with her first series, Throne of Glass. I have now read all 8 Throne of Glass books, and I can honestly say that the Throne of Glass books have completely taken over my life. I go to sleep thinking about Throne of Glass, and when I wake up, I am still thinking about Throne of Glass. I eat, sleep, and breathe Throne of Glass. When my mom asked me what I want for Christmas, I told her the Throne of Glass box set because I only owned the first 2. My boyfriend's borrowing the first one right now, and I had to read the rest through the library. So, naturally, I have a lot of thoughts on this series. It is simultaneously extremely messy and also extremely genius. It plays into so many tropes only to subvert them, but then play into them even more. It's a read just for the drama of it all until suddenly it is a complex work of fiction with detailed lore, only for that lore to get so confusing that it's either outright forgotten or butchered. It's sometimes a masterclass of character development and plot structure, and other times completely random and infuriating. And I loved every second of it. To be honest, I kind of prefer stories like this where like it's not universally loved and it is kind of messy. With stories like this that have such dense world building, it is honestly really hard to make it like light and concise. Like, that's a hard thing to do. Writing fantasy is hard. So if you make an attempt at it as at least engaging with interesting characters and a million different plot threads, there's just so much to discuss. Even if one thing is confusing or doesn't make sense, there are 3 other things that are really interesting and do, and I eat that shit up. So given how popular Sarah J. Maas has become, and given that ACOTAR is in super early talks right now to get a TV adaptation, I'm kind of wondering if it's almost inevitable for this series to get a TV adaptation. Now, granted, the most realistic way I see this happening is if ACOTAR does become a show and it becomes a huge hit and they kind of want to like recapture what they got with the first show and to sort of keep ACOTAR fans entertained in between seasons, kind of like what they did with Bridgerton and Queen Charlotte. And I still haven't read ACOTAR, but from what I've heard, it is pretty different from Throne of Glass, at least like how it starts. Throne of Glass starts out more as like a YA teen series and like eventually grows into being more of an adult series, whereas from what I've heard, ACOTAR starts out like right out of the gate as an adult series. But because Sarah J. Maas is known for her spice, people would probably go into this series expecting it right out of the gate. I know, I did. You have to read like 4 books to get, actually no, 5. Depending on the order you read it in, 5. And if this does get a show, the showrunners might feel pressured to shoehorn that in earlier because people are expecting it, and I'm worried that this would kind of be like a Hobbit or Parks and Rec situation, if you know, sort of making the series something that it's not. But I want to pretend for a minute that the powers that be in Hollywood are all competent storytellers. And if this series were to get an adaptation and people weren't afraid to change stuff solely for the benefit of the story and not just for marketing reasons, then I actually think that this series could improve in adaptation. Now, the chances of that happening are very slim, given the state of the entertainment industry right now, but a girl can dream. So that's what this video is about. I'm going to tell you all about my obsession with the Throne of Glass series, what I love about it, what I don't love about it, and then I want to tell you about all of the ways that I think it could work in a TV adaptation. And if anyone in Hollywood is watching, you can thank me later because my ideas are all amazing and they would be celebrated by all. Part 1, let's recap. In order for all of you to understand everything that I'm about to talk about, I'm going to need to do just a quick flyover recap of the entire series. And by quick, I mean about half of the runtime of this video. Now, I am going to try to keep this as short as possible, but you have to remember there are 8 books, and this last one here is close to 1,000 pages long. Now, if you've already read this series and you feel like you don't need a refresher, or if you just don't care about the context, you can go ahead and skip to this time code. For everyone else, I am going to recap the series in the order in which it is meant to be read. So, Book 1, Book 2, the prequel book, and then the rest of them. I did not read the books in this order, we'll get to that. And Throne of Glass fans watching, no, I did not tandem read, and I'm not going to tandem recap either. We will get to that too. And I'm also about to steal a lot of jokes from Lindsay Ellis's Game of Thrones recap, so strap in. Book 1, Throne of Glass. Selena Sardathian is the best assassin in the world, at least she was until she got caught and has now been spending the last year as a prisoner doing labor in a salt mine. Her time in the prison salt mine is paused when the Crown Prince of Otterland, Dorian, is like, hey, I want to sponsor you in a competition my father, the king, is holding where every member of his court picks a criminal, and whichever criminal passes all the trials gets to be the king's personal assassin for some years and is then granted freedom. And Selena's like, hell yeah, where do I sign? Captain of the Guard Chaol, who's also Dorian's bestie, trains her, and they have a rough start, but then they become friends. During the competition, competitors start turning up dead, having been mauled by some beast set upon them. Selena decides to investigate. Along the way, she starts dating Dorian because he's hot and nice and gives her books, much to the dismay of this girl, Lady Kaltane, who is currently dating this guy, Duke Parrington, but he's like old and she doesn't like him. She makes friends with visiting Princess Nehemia of Eelway, which is under control of the king, and whose people are being taken as slaves, and she receives the help of Elena, who's a ghost, and she tells her she must win the competition and uncover the mystery of these deaths because it's her destiny or something. Selena discovers that certain symbols found around the castle, specifically around the creepy clock tower in the garden, are called word marks and written can be used to perform magic spells. Nehemia seems to be knowledgeable about this but doesn't want to talk about it. Turns out another competitor sponsored by Duke Parrington, Kane, is using word marks to summon the beast and kill the competition. Both Duke Parrington and Kane have these evil rings and they presumably be using them to control Kaltane. They trick Kaltane into drugging Selena in the final challenge, but she overcomes the hallucination she gets from the drug due to help from Nehemia, who does word mark magic or something and wins the competition and her freedom. Kane subsequently tries to kill Selena, but Chaol kills him before he can. Kaltane gets sent to the dungeons for the drugging. Selena breaks up with Dorian, and it turns out the king has a magic evil ring and was working with Duke Parrington and Kane the whole time and was behind all of it. What? Book 2, Crown of Midnight. Selena's now the king's personal assassin and has spent the last couple months killing people for the king, except LOL, no she hasn't. She's just been helping the people escape and fake their deaths. Selena's next assignment is someone she knows from when she was an assassin named Archer. He's supposedly part of some rebel group the king wants silence. Archer says he's not in the rebel group, but he says that he heard they're trying to restore a thought-to-be long-dead queen from the neighboring kingdom, Terracin, which is where Selena is from, to her throne, and offers to help Selena figure out who's in the rebel group. While Selena tries to investigate the mystery, she discovers that there are some powerful magical objects that have something to do with the king's power. Dorian discovers he has magic powers, but he doesn't know much about them, so he goes to see a witch who's at a carnival in town and promises to make sense in context, named Baba Yellowlegs. Selena also goes to see Baba Yellowlegs for information about the magic objects. She tells her what they are, what they do, and where they come from. Basically, they allow these demon things to travel to their world, and they give whoever has one massive power. And the rings that Duke Parrington and the king have make them possessed by demons, and Selena kills Baba Yellowlegs after she gets this information to stop her from spilling the beans about Dorian's magic. Selena and Chaol start dating, and he takes her V card. Chaol is told by the king that Nehemia is getting death threats. Chaol is like, okay, I'll get my best people on it, and he doesn't mention this to Selena. Chaol then gets kidnapped, and Selena gets a ransom of saying where he is. She shows up, kills a bunch of guys, but then Archer shows up. He lied, and he is part of the rebel group. In fact, he's actually leading it alongside Nehemia. He tells Selena that they thought Chaol was sent to kill Nehemia. That's why they initially kidnapped him, but then they found out that he wasn't. So someone else is currently killing Nehemia, but they still kept Chaol there, so they could, I guess, expose him to Selena for keeping secrets or something. It doesn't make sense. So Selena goes back to try to stop Nehemia's murder, but she's too late. R.I.P. legend. Selena blames her murder on Kale and she tries to kill him, but Dorian uses his new magic to stop her. After she cools down, she figures out who did the murder, kills him, and exposes the guy he said was his employer, a guy who's a member of the king's court. Selena finds where one of the magic keys is supposed to be, but it's the one that the king already has. She tries to summon Nehemia with her new wordmark knowledge, and Nehemia's ghost tells her to close the portal, but before she can, Archer shows up and reveals that he was the one who actually orchestrated Nehemia's death, and he thinks he can convince Selena to join his side. This does not work out well for him. Selena tries to kill him, but a creature comes through the portal. Dorian and Kale rush in to help, and Kale fends off the creature, but the creature takes Selena's dog, who is also here. She and Kale go after it when she steps through the portal, and then she turns into a fae person and shoots fire at it. What? They get out of the portal. Selena uses Dorian's blood to write word marks to close the portal. She then runs after Archer, and she kills him. Selena says she's able to turn into fae and has magic because her great-grandmother was fae. She doesn't have her abilities in their world because the king outlawed magic and it mysteriously disappeared around the same time. Kale gets worried that the king will find out about Selena's fae powers, so he makes a deal with his dad and the king to send Selena to another continent under the guise of killing members of the royal family. In reality, he wants her to use the opportunity to escape. Selena tells Kale all the lore that he missed out on so he can try and figure out where the magic keys are and how to destroy them, since she won't be able to do it. She also gives him info so that he can discover that Selena is actually Aelin, the queen from the neighboring kingdom I mentioned earlier. What? Book 2.5, prequel book. It's basically just a lore drop so that we can get Selena's tragic backstory, and when certain characters show up later in the series, you don't go, wait, who is that? Basically, Selena, along with fellow assassin and unofficial rival Sam, screws over her master Erebin's slave trade deal with a pirate lord, leading her to become persona non grata of the pirate lord's turf and receiving a series of brutal punishments from Erebin. First, she's beaten while Sam, now her friend, is forced to watch. Then she is sent to train with some hardcore monk assassins. On her way there, she teaches a would-be nurse self-defense and gives her money to be able to travel and pay for nursing school. She makes a friend Ansel while training with the silent assassins, who betrays and kills a bunch of them. Selena overpowers her but lets her go. The master of the silent assassins gives her a bunch of money so that she can pay off her debts to Erebin and leave the Assassin's Guild. Selena is, unbeknownst to her, still being punished when she returns. Erebin tricks her into killing an abolitionist. Sam helps her out and confesses his love to her. Aww, don't get attached. She told Erebin that after this mission she's paying off her debts to him and is moving out but will stay in the guild. Selena finds out that the guy she killed was actually an abolitionist and that Erebin spent all the money she just paid him taking the virginity of a sex worker named Lysandra, who she hates. Selena very justifiably fucks off and leaves the guild, taking Sam with her. Despite what you may think, her punishment is still not over yet. She and Sam take a job to kill a local crime lord and a second in command. Sam leaves to take care of the second in command by himself but never comes back. Erebin tells Selena the inevitable bad news that Sam is dead. R.I.P. legend. Selena goes to the crime lord's house to get revenge. She kills the crime lord, but the second in command drugs her and holds her captive because it was a setup. He turns her into the king and she gets sentenced to the prison slave mine. It's revealed that Erebin set the whole thing up because he was jealous that Sam took Selena away. Puke. Book 3, Selena is on the other continent in search of Maeve, a goddess who knows about the magic keys and is queen of the Fae. A Fae prince whose blood sworn to Maeve and also tatted up and sexy. Rowan finds Selena first and brings her to Maeve. Maeve says she won't give Selena the time of day or tell her how to destroy or find the magic keys until she can control her fire powers. So Rowan trains her in order to do so, and he is a massive asshole to her. Meanwhile, Selena's cousin, who is also her adopted brother, Aedion, is a general for the king and comes back to Rifthold. Chaos spies on him because he's been acting sus, but he gets caught. He tells Aedion that Aelin is Selena and that she's alive to get out of this predicament, and it turns out, luckily, Aedion hasn't actually been loyal to the king and he's been faking his battle wins, so they team up to figure out how to find the magic keys, how to restore magic to the realm, and what's up with the creepy demon guards that have been showing up and trying to kill them.
Thank you for being a friend.
Dorian also falls in love with a healer. Aww, don't get attached. We have a new point of view character, whole new subplot going on in this one. Her name is Manon, and she's a witch. Her whole subplot is like becoming wing leader of the witches who now work for the king to get some wyverns out of it, which are like dragons, but with 2 legs instead of 4. And her wyvern's name is Abraxos, and we love him. Selena and Rowan trauma bond, but he's still a major asshole to her. They run into a demon creature with an evil collar around its neck. It's basically like a Dementor or Vecna, and it sucks out your happiness. Rowan saves Selena from the happiness sucking. Also during training, Selena overheats, and Rowan has to take off her clothes. He sees her scars from when she was whipped in the prison slave mine and decides he's actually gonna be nice to her now. Aedion and Kale figure out that there are other creepy clock towers built around the king's empire, and they encircle the area where magic doesn't work anymore. The king sends an army commanded by a general possessed by demons to the village where Selena and Rowan are. She now has full control over her firepower, and she uses it to win the battle. We also find out that she and Rowan have some magical bond called Karanam, so he's able to save Selena from the happiness sucking again. And when he does that, it gives her a vision to make her realize that Erebin has a magic key because it was a necklace that he took from her when he saved her as a child. Having full control over fire powers, Selena goes back to Maeve, and she's like, hey, I did what you asked, and I learned to control my powers. Can you tell me how to find and destroy the magic keys? And Maeve is like, lol, no, I lied. I don't know where they are, and they're impossible to destroy, but what you can do is find them and put them back in the gate that they came from, and that will close the gate forever. And if you find them, I'll totally do that for you. And Selena's like, okay, no, you definitely just want the magic keys used for yourself. I'm obviously not going to do that. So Maeve starts torturing Rowan, and she's like, do it, or I'll hurt him. But Selena has found some ring during training that she has some other power that Maeve might be able to use. So she's like, actually, I'll give you this ring if you release Rowan from your blood oath, and if you don't take my deal, I'll just burn everyone in your kingdom alive. So Maeve's like, okay, fair. So Maeve takes the deal. Rowan, who is apparently a massive simp, immediately wants to swear a blood oath to Selena, and she's like, no, I literally just freed you from a blood oath. I couldn't possibly. Okay, sure. And Maeve is super mad, and they are now sworn enemies. Selena has fully realized her identity is Aelin, so I will be referring to her as such from now on. She decides to go back to Otterland to find Arabin and the magic key and tells Rowan to stay behind, but not before getting some sexy tattoos of her own. Dorian, Kale, and Adian get called into the king's throne room. Turns out none of them are very good at sneaking around, and the king knows all of their secrets. Turns out the healer Dorian's been hooking up with is a member of the resistance, and the king beheads her in front of them. Dorian does not take this well and tries to get the king with his magic, giving Adian and Kale a chance to escape. Kale gets out, Adian gets captured, and the king uses his evil ring magic to overpower Dorian, who gets an evil demon collar put on him. Oh no! Book 4, the best one, don't at me. Aelin returns to Rifthold and meets with Arabin. He tells her Adian is going to be executed at Dorian's big birthday bash, and he'll help her rescue him if she can capture a demon soldier and give it to him. Kale's new gal pal Nesrin leads Aelin to Kale, and they give each other their life updates. Kale tells Aelin about the demon collar. She tells him that they're going to have to put Dorian down like Old Yeller. Kale disagrees and they get in a big fight. That sex worker Aelin hates, Lysandra, shows up with this little girl that she takes care of to tell Aelin Arabin's plan to rescue Adian. She also tells Aelin that it was in fact Arabin who betrayed her and Sam, and he also killed another assassin who tried to warn Aelin, who was also Lysandra's lover. Aelin rescues Adian. Rowan shows up. He's able to disobey his order to stay behind. He's another one of Maeve's blood oathers. Lorcan has come to kill Aelin. Rowan also reveals that his best bro, Gabriel, another blood oather, is Adian's father. Manon is posted with the witches at the bad guy headquarters. That is definitely not Mordor because it's called Morrath. Duke Parrington is also there and orders Manon to volunteer one of the witch clans to be impregnated by the Vouch, which are like the demon things. I don't think I said that. Manon feels justifiably uneasy about this, but the Yellowlegs clan volunteers itself. Manon also thinks her maid given to her by the king's army, Elide, is a witch, and so she offers to protect her from her evil uncle, who also works for the king, if she aligns herself with the witches. Manon sees Kaltain, remember Kaltain? While at Morath, she now has a collar on, and her Vouch possession has given her fire powers. Manon has Elide spy for her to tell her what's going on with the witches getting impregnated. Aelin and Co find out that Lysandra is actually a shapeshifter. Elide gets into the witch impregnation room, and just as they expected, it is going very badly. The witches are getting very sick and are on the brink of death. Manon's second in command, Astrid, tells her they need to back out, but Manon stays in her lane. Aelin captures a demon for Arabin, but replaces the evil ring with a fake one. Arabin gives her the necklace with the magic key, but then uses the fake guy to control Aelin. Aelin decides to give Lysandra the okay to kill Arabin, and she succeeds. R.I.P. Wait, no, we hate him. He doesn't get to R.I.P. Lysandra gets kidnapped after the king's army finds out she's a shapeshifter. Aelin, Rowan, Kale, Adian, and Nesrin all go to Morath to rescue her. While they're there, Dorian is also brought there, and he is temporarily brought back to himself. I am not joking about this. By horniness. Okay, when he sees Manon because he thinks that she's very hot. Kale doesn't see this interaction and has now been convinced that Dorian needs to be put down like Old Yeller. He goes to do that and it doesn't go well. They get caught by the witches and Aelin and Manon fight. Aelin barely beats her but lets her live. Our heroes return from Rifthold. Lorcan shows up, says that he took the ring they gave Maeve because it protects whoever wears it from demon control. He offers to give them the ring in exchange for the magic key. They do the swap, and haha JK, the word key is fake. Rowan and Aelin kiss. Manon leaves messages written in demon blood for Aelin telling her that Dorian can be brought back. Since people don't know that Aelin and Selena are the same person, Aelin will pretend to take Kale into the king as a prisoner. They will attempt to kill the king and bring back Dorian, and if that doesn't work, put him down like Old Yeller. Meanwhile, Rowan and Adian will attempt to destroy the creepy clock tower to restore magic. Once they do that, Aelin should be able to use her fire magic against the king and Dorian. So Aelin and Kale get into the castle, but the king susses out that Aelin has been Aelin the whole time, so that backfires. Aelin runs, Dorian follows, and Kale attempts to hold back the king, which ends in him getting his back broken and very nearly dying. Lorcan shows up to help Adian and Rowan fight demon dog hybrids to get to the clock tower. They blow it up. Lysandra, now being able to shapeshift again, shows up as a leopard and helps them kill a bunch of demons. Dorian and Aelin fight. She uses the magic ring to bring back Dorian, but it doesn't work. What does work is the king showing up claiming that he killed Kale, and Dorian's love for his bestie Kale is so strong in his grief that he comes back.
Thank you for being a friend.
The king also briefly comes to and reveals that he's been possessed by demons since before they were all born, and Duke Parrington is possessed by Erewhon, the big bad king of the demons. Dorian is so angry about this that he shatters the glass castle, and they all fall. They all somehow survive this except for the king. I don't know, just roll with it. Meanwhile, Elide is taken by her evil uncle to be forced impregnated with demons. Manon goes to rescue her, and they run into Kaltain, who's freed herself from demon possession and offers to pull a switcheroo with Elide if she promises to find Selena Sardothian and give her this magic key. Hey! Once they escape the tower, Kaltain suicide bombs the tower with her new fire powers. Kale's spine broke in multiple places, rendering him unable to walk. He and Ezra decide to go on a side quest to the southern continent to fix his back and gain their allyship against the demons. Aelin makes Lysandra, Rowan, and Adian members of her court, and they travel back to Terrasen and reclaim the throne. Dorian is now king of Otterland. Ezra is now captain of the guard. Elide has escaped Morath and is on her own looking for Aelin and Selena, not realizing that they are the same person. Book 5! Okay, so this is where the series kind of starts to jump the shark. So I need you to stay with me. Elide and Lorcan run into each other in the woods and get attacked by scary giant bat creatures. They team up. Aelin and Co's return to Terrasen is not going as planned. The lords don't trust Aelin because of her past, and they won't let her take back her throne. Manon is given an order by her... Damn it. Manon is given an order by her evil grandmother to invade Rifthold and kidnap Dorian. Word gets out about Manon's army going to Rifthold to wreak havoc. Rowan transforms into his hawk form to get Rifthold in time to rescue Dorian, while Aelin and everyone else go to the Pirate Lord's turf to see if they can win over his pirate army. Manon kills one of her own witches to let Dorian get away. He escapes with Rowan to meet up with Aelin and friends on Pirate Island. Manon's evil grandmother punishes her for killing the witch by ordering her to kill Astrid. Manon can't bring herself to do it and tries to kill her grandmother instead, but she fails. During the fight, her grandmother reveals that she killed her mother and that her father was a witch from an enemy clan thought to be destroyed. She escapes with her life, but she's severely wounded. Her coven, the 13, escape. So out for her. Aelin sends letters to more potential allies to fight the demons. On their way to Pirate Island, Aelin and co summon the ghost of Brannon, Elena's father, and he tells them where to find the lock to put the magic keys. Rowan and Dorian get to Pirate Island before Aelin and co. Gavriel and Fenris, another Maeve blood oather, show up, and they say they've been given orders by Maeve to kill Lorcan. Aelin finally gets to Pirate Island, and despite being persona non grata and screwing up the Pirate Lord's slave business, she manages to convince the Pirate Lord to aid them in battle so that he can regain his lost territory. Aedion meets his father Gabriel. It doesn't go well. The demons arrive to Pirate Island, and there's a big battle. Aedion professes his love for Lysandra. Aww. They win the battle. Aelin and Rowan say I love yous and have sex on the beach. They leave Pirate Island to find the lock to put the magic key in, and the Pirate Lord goes to find a lost race of pirates to get their ally ship. We just don't see this happen at all. He leaves and he comes back and he found him. On the journey there, Manon and her wyvern Abraxos, who we love and is a good loyal pet, fly onto their ship. Aelin and Rowan heal Manon but lock her below deck because they can't trust her. Elide and Lorcan trauma bond. They also find out where Aelin is heading to try to get there to find her. Fenris says Maeve said something about something nameless is her price, which Aelin reacts strongly to, but she won't say why. Elide and Lorcan kiss after he saves her from her evil uncle. Aww. They finally get back to where the lock is supposed to be and it's not there, but what is there is a mirror. Aelin's friend Ansel, who betrayed her that she let go in Assassin's Blade, shows up alongside the Prince of Gwendolyn. They got Aelin's letters and they are ready to help her in battle. Aedion also comes out as bi to Lysandra. Elide and Lorcan find Aelin and co. Gavriel and Fenris agree not to kill Lorcan through a blood oath loophole. Elide gives Aelin the second magic key. Manon and Dorian have sex. Maeve's Armada shows up. They have until morning to figure out how to beat them or if they're gonna surrender. Rowan has a bunch of cousins in Maeve's navy, or the Navy, you could call it. So he flies onto the ships and asks them to betray Maeve. Dorian figures out that the mirror is a portal meant for Manon and Aelin to go through so they can find out how to close the gate. They go through it right before the battle with the Navy starts. The mirror gives them a vision that tells them the lock is actually this amulet they've had the whole time. Elena had sealed the gate and the gods said they'd only take Erewhon with them if Elena sacrifices someone in her bloodline, revealing Aelin will have to seal the gate and died doing it. And apparently Nehemia knew all of this and died to motivate Aelin or something. Let's not unpack that. Also, Elena compelled Erebin to go out and find Aelin to save her so that she could be taught self-defense. Rowan's cousins fire on Maeve. Lorcan realizes Maeve isn't there but is actually still on the shore where Elide is, so he goes to rescue Elide. Manon and Aelin come out of the mirror memory portal to the shore where Elide is being held by knife point by Maeve and her new blood oather. I don't know why this is where they come out at. Very convenient. Turns out Maeve only found them because Lorcan, always a simp for Maeve, summoned her after mistakenly thinking Ansel's ships were an enemy fleet. Gabriel and Fenris show up and Maeve severs the blood oath with Gabriel. She reveals that Aelin and Rowan are mates. She whips Aelin, chains her up, and forces her to go with Maeve to spare Elide. Aelin does this willingly because she had slipped the magic keys into Manon's pocket when no one was looking. Maeve also releases Lorcan from the blood oath and keeps Fenris in his wolf form that I forgot to mention that he has. Immediately after they board the ship and it magically disappears, Rowan shows up and he's like, "Where's my wife?" And everyone's like, "What do you mean your wife?" Well, it turns out the night before, when they knew the Navy was coming, Aelin and Rowan got married. Surprise! When Aelin realized her destiny was to die after Fenris, that nameless is my price, she told Lysandra that if anything happens to her, she has to shapeshift and pretend to be her for the rest of her life, pretend to be married to Rowan, but have kids with Aedion so that they'll look like her. Neither of them told this plan to anyone until now, and Lysandra's following through with it and starts pretending to be Aelin immediately. Aedion is very rightfully pissed about this. The 13 find Manon and offer to help her find her long-lost witch clan her father comes from. Dorian comes with them so that he can find the last magic key and possibly sacrifice himself instead and to close the gate. Rowan sets off with Lorcan, Elide, and Gabriel to find Aelin. Book 6. This happens at the same time as the events in Empire of Storms. So, Chaol gets together with the nurse Aelin taught self-defense to in Assassin's Blade. Her name is Yrene and she's a powerful magic healer. They find out that she's also an exorcist, and can dispel demons from people's bodies. She heals Chaol so that he can walk again. They get married. Nesryn gets together with the Prince of the Southern Continent. She learns how to ride big birds. Find out from Maeve's army of evil giant spiders that Maeve is not actually Fae, but is secretly a demon. What? They convince the Kagan to send aid and their armies to help fight the demons. Book 7. Home stretch. Aelin has been locked up and tortured by Maeve for 2 months. Fenris has been there under blood oath and uses their own blinking Morse code to check on her. Lysandra has been pretending to be Aelin this whole time and somehow no one has noticed that she and Aelin are never seen together and that Lysandra Aelin hasn't used fire powers. Aedion still won't talk to Lysandra because of this stupid ass plan. Things are not going well for them. The demon army has taken and destroyed an entire city and more are on the way. Dorian summons the ghost of Gavin, Elena's husband, to ask him where the last magic key is, but he won't tell him because he'll be separated from Elena in the afterlife if they close the gate. Manon and Dorian find a giant spider who they cajole into leading them to the lost witch clan. Yrene is pregnant. Congrats. Nesryn and her prince fly on big birds to spy on the demon armies and they find out they're headed towards Chaol's hometown. Rowan, Elide, and Lorcan figure out where Aelin is and they start a rumor that one of the evil mind control callers is around to lure Maeve away from Aelin. And it works! Maeve goes to find the evil mind control caller and has her evil blood oath their henchmen move Aelin somewhere else. Manon and Dorian and co find the lost witch clan. They're spotted and attacked by the evil witches. They defend the new witches and gain their trust. Dorian susses out that Manon led them there on purpose so that the new witches would trust them. The lords vote to send the army to Terrason's capital, but Aedion disagrees. One of the competitors from the first book is now a spy for Terrason's army. He figures out that Lysandra's pretending to be Aelin when she doesn't recognize him. He for some reason agrees to keep the secret and drugs the lords to knock them out so that they can move the army to where Aedion wants to go without them knowing. Dorian decides to try to learn to shapeshift for some reason. Elide, Rowan, and Lorcan find where Aelin is being hidden. She escapes as they rescue her and Rowan kills the evil henchman. We find out all of Aelin's scars and her sexy tattoos are gone because the healers had to replace literally all of her skin while she was being tortured. Fenris nearly dies breaking the blood oath to help Aelin escape, but Aelin has Fenris swear the blood oath to her and orders him to live so that he can't die. Dorian tries summoning Gavin again, but accidentally summons Kaltain. Remember Kaltain? She tells him the final magic key is at Morath. Dorian successfully shapeshifts. Aedion and Lysandra get in a fight, and he throws her into the snow while she's naked and yells obscenities at her. It is super uncool. Aelin has Lorcan take the blood oath to ensure that he doesn't betray them because of that whole calling Made to the Shores thing from Empire Storms. Aedion, Lysandra, and co. fight a battle, but it doesn't go well, and Lysandra tries to pretend to be Aelin and motivate them, but they figure out that it's not her, but she can't use fire, and she gets wounded. Their army gets decimated by a suicide bomb witch tower. Aelin and co. join Chaol and co. to defend Chaol's hometown. Nezrin confirms that Maeve is a demon. Aelin realizes that this makes her the real Fae Queen. If we're keeping track at home, that means that she's Queen of Terrasen and of Doranel. Holy shit. Aedion is stripped of his title of general for going against direct orders, lying about Aelin being there when it was actually Lysandra and losing thousands of men. The battle for Chaol's hometown begins. It seems to be going well enough until they realize that the bad guys broke open the dam encircling the city. Okay. So this is probably the dumbest thing to happen in the whole series. Strap in. So this huge swarm of water from the broken dam is about to drown everyone. There's no chance of escaping it. But then Aelin pulls up and single-handedly delivers a fire blast that is so powerful and so hot that it evaporates all of the water rushing towards them. And while this absolutely insane thing is happening, Elide, who has a limp by the way, gets onto a horse, runs to find Lorcan, who is wounded, manages to pull Lorcan, who is much bigger and heavier than her, I think he's supposed to be like twice her size, onto the horse, and then outruns this rushing water to bring him back to safety. And they all live. No main characters die during the scene. It's perfect. I wouldn't change a thing. Manon asks Dorian not to go to Morath alone to find the last magic key, and Dorian's like, oh, don't worry, baby girl, I'll be right here. And then they have sex, and Manon wakes up and he's gone. Aedion sends a call for aid. The pirate lord shows up with those lost pirates that he went out to find. Manon and the witches take the call and head toward them. Terrasen.
Call for aid!
The 13th.
Will answer.
Aelin sends letters to the Fae that Maeve is a demon so that they'll revolt against her and help them. They also head toward Aedion's army, and Aelin's letters work. Maeve is ousted as queen, so she pulls up to Erewhon like, hey, remember me? I can help like bring your brothers back from the dead maybe? And Dorian like shapeshifts into a mouse, and he sees all of this. He's here now. But then he follows Maeve and he gets caught. He offers to work with her to find the magic key, so while Maeve distracts Erewhon, Dorian shapeshifts again so that he can find it. He gets it. Maeve tries to use her mind control powers to take it from him, but then Dorian, who for some fucking reason is just able to do any kind of magic power he comes across, turns it around on her and does like some mind freezing or something and escapes with the final key. Aelin and co find Elide's evil uncle. Elide decides to lock him up and let him die of starvation. Girl boss moment. Manon and co show up to help Aedion and co. Lorcan and Elide have sex. Aedion and Lysandra's army are about to lose super hard to the demon witch army, so the 13 all sacrifice themselves to save them. They're all dead. Manon's entire coven is dead. R.I.P. some legends. Dorian finds Aelin and co. They decide to use the magic keys to force the lock and close the gate. Rowan gives Aelin her sexy tattoos back. Rowan comes up with a plan he thinks might not get Aelin killed, where both she and Dorian force the lock together. It's a bad plan. They force the lock, but both of them start to die. Dorian's father, the king, comes up to them in the spirit realm or wherever the fuck they are, and is like, it's okay, I'll take Dorian's place because I am also nameless, and I could never be there as a father because I was possessed by a demon, so this is how I'll make it up. And also the king's name is just also Dorian, and the reason why the king never had a name is because the demon erased it from everyone's memory, and definitely not because Sarah J. Maas forgot to name him until just now. Dorian comes back, but Aelin is still in the spirit world to close the gate. All the gods and goddesses and their descendants appear in front of her, and they ask her to let them return to the gate. Aelin, for some fucking reason, asks if they can trade Erewhon's soul for Elena's, even though the entire reason they went looking for these keys and why she's giving up her life, it was to trap Erewhon's soul, and the gods just and the gods just destroy Elena's soul because they're like offended or something, and they say, actually no, we're not gonna take Erewhon with us. So this whole plot that took like 6 books of finding all these damn keys and the forging of the lock and the sealing of the gate, it doesn't even work because Aelin's a fucking moron. So the gods go back, and one of them gives Aelin some of her power and tells her to think of home so that she'll be okay. Aelin realizes that when Rowan tattooed her, he wrote in word marks that she'd be able to open portals. So Aelin sends all the gods to a hell world instead to punish them, and then falls between worlds until eventually landing back in her body. Now she only has a small fraction of her firepower, but is no longer human and is now an immortal Fae. Lysandra and Aedion kiss and make up. Aedion gets his title back because of that little girl that I mentioned earlier that Lysandra takes care of. She like asked this one lord to do it, and he likes her together. So he says yes. Aedion's forces are out of ammunition. All hope is lost until Aelin and co show up with Chaol and Nesrin's big bird army. Gabriel and Aedion reunite and fight alongside each other, but Gabriel dies to keep the bad guys out of the capital. R.I.P. a legend. Aelin finds Maeve and Erewhon together and pretends she still has all of her fire powers so that she can stall them. Dorian holds back Erewhon, and Yrene uses her exorcist powers to dispel the demon, and it kills him. Aelin uses her new portal opening power she got from the spirit world to summon an army to kill Maeve. They're able to disarm her, and Aelin beheads her. This in turn kills all the demons, and the demon army is destroyed. That's it, that's all it took. Aelin gives the Fae throne to Rowan's cousin. Manon is queen of the witches. She and Dorian are basically still together. Dorian takes his title as king of Otterland back. Chaol takes his title as lord of Aniel back. Aedion finally takes the blood oath. Lorcan and Elide get married. Aedion and Lysandra get engaged. And Aelin is officially crowned queen of Terrasen. The end. Part 2. The good stuff. Welcome to my slumber party. I know the lighting's different because it's nighttime because I just got home from work. So based on the amount of snark that you just got in the last part, you probably are expecting this part to be pretty short, but there is a lot to love about this series. First off is the characters. The first book really makes you think that you're gonna hate all of these characters for the series. Selena in particular is pretty insufferable, but in book 2 they develop a lot more and it really only gets better from there. There are also a lot of interesting characters that get introduced later in the series and they all add such a unique perspective to the story. Now I'll talk about this later in the section about stuff that I don't like, but I think Sarah J. Maas kind of figured out that she was really good at writing interesting characters, and so she just kept writing a lot and a lot and a lot of interesting characters and kept making us read from their point of views to the point where I'm pretty sure there's like 15 different POVs by the time you get to the last book, and it's like, okay, I think we might have too many cooks. We might have too many cooks in the kitchen. But it is a little bit justified in the fact that, like, none of them are unlikable and they all serve a purpose for the most part. Honest to God, I think the only character that you're supposed to like that I initially didn't like full out, hated was Manon. Don't come for me, Throne of Glass fans. I don't know, I just didn't like her perspective and I thought it was annoying that her story wasn't related to everybody else's, but once her story was relating to what everybody else was doing, she was a very interesting character and she ended up being one of my favorites. I'm also a big sucker for a redemption arc and hers is just done beautifully. Selena/Aelin is probably the character who grows the most in this story while still kind of keeping her main personality traits, which is great. It's always good to see growth in your protagonist. She starts out pretty unequivocally not like the other girls, and I think in the first book she even says she's not like those girls, explicitly. But as you learn more about her and you become more comfortable with her perspective, you realize that not only is she not like the other girls, but she basically is the other girls. Yeah, no kidding, she doesn't need to compromise her beliefs to get male attention because every man is already obsessed with her. She has no qualms about, dressing extravagantly or wearing makeup or spending money on nice things. She likes that. She's also arguably the only accurate and sympathetic portrayal of narcissism that I've ever seen other than Eleanor from The Good Place. And not a narcissist as in what you call that girl from high school you don't like who posts a lot on Instagram. No, I mean a real one, narcissistic personality disorder. And this is just my reading, you don't have to agree. I don't have a background in psychology, but Aelin does have a lot of the things that you need to be diagnosed with NPD. She puts on this facade of being better than everyone else that she really only kind of believes. In reality, she deeply hates herself. She often remarks in the first book about how she's debasing herself by competing against nobodies. But at the same time, she also feels a deep self-loathing over the fact that she's made a living by unaliving people. She makes a lot of really rude comments to Lysandra about being a sex worker as if that's somehow worse than being, a murderer. She's pretty arrogant, very envious of others, and she definitely has a flair for the dramatic. Honestly, I think the only thing that would count against her being a narcissist is that she's pretty uncomfortable being a sort of chosen one from the get-go. And while she does improve morally over the series, a lot of those main core personality traits never really go away. She doesn't have to character arc her way out of being a narcissist. And I like Aelin. I'm not bothered by the fact that she's a narcissist. She's kind of like a narcissist with a heart of gold. It's kind of her fatal flaw, and it causes a lot of interpersonal conflict, and other characters actually do call her out for it. Now, the narrative doesn't always punish her for things that she probably should be called out for, but it does punish her often enough where I'm willing to let it slide. I also love the world building of this series. The world building, not the lore. I am separating those two. We'll get to that. I love when characters travel from one place to another, the amount of time that it takes and the things that they pass on the way there line up with what they have on the map in like the front of the book. I love fantasy books with maps at the front. Good every time. I love how many little details there are about like the culture and like the celebrations they have. A lot of them line up with like real world celebrations, which is pretty common in fantasy. And, you know, they all have like a unique fantasy twist though. So like there's Christmas, but you know, it obviously doesn't celebrate the birth of Christ. So they call it Yulemas. And, you know, all of the different holidays, you know, celebrate a different god, and they all have a bunch of different gods that they worship. I think that's neat. I love that one of the books is just like a slow-paced character study told from Kaol's point of view. Now, I don't know that it necessarily needed to be its own book. Like, I don't think that was necessary, but I like that it exists. I think it's a good book. I actually think it's better than the book that it splits away from. Since it's a book that is a separate point of view that's told during the events of Empire of Storms, a lot of people do a tandem read. Someone made like a guide where you read these chapters of Empire of Storms and then you read these chapters of Tower of Dawn, and then you go back and forth and you read it as if it's one extremely large book. I am so glad I didn't do that. And at first I was regretting not doing that because Empire of Storms ends on a pretty big cliffhanger. But did this need to be its own book? No. But should you read it as its own book? Yes. Don't do the tandem. Don't do it. Don't do it. Anyway, from what I can tell, the Throne of Glass fandom is pretty split on this book and whether or not you should do the tandem read. And I think the main reason is just because a lot of people really don't like Kaol, and I don't know why. Kaol doesn't really do anything wrong in this series, except like arguably cheat on Nezrin, but like people already hate him by the time he does that. Their relationship is so unnecessary that I didn't even mention it in my recap, and people never even bring that up anyway. They always bring up, you know, how mean he is to Aelin in Queen of Shadows, and it's like, okay, I get it though. Like some of his reasons for being mean to her in that book are like pretty unjustified and like a little bit random, but at the same time, like Aelin is also extremely mean to him in that book too, and like nobody ever gets mad at her for it. People also bring up the whole thing about like Nehemia's death that happens in Crown of Midnight, and that is even more bewildering to me. Like within the universe of the book, this is like a huge thing that Aelin and Kaol have like a big falling out over. Like if you were able to catch it earlier, like she tries to kill him over it. And it doesn't really make that much sense because, okay, so as a reminder, Archer orchestrated Nehemia's death, but he also added in a layer where he made it seem like Kaol was keeping secrets from Selena by not telling her that Nehemia was getting death threats. So that means that her death is also Kaol's fault. But no, it's not. Like, okay, let's pretend that Kaol didn't fall for Archer's conniving, and he had indeed told Selena that Nehemia was getting death threats. What would that have changed? Nothing. It wouldn't have changed anything. Like maybe she would have just been like more vigilant around Nehemia, but either way, Kaol still got kidnapped, and she and Kaol were dating. So obviously, she was gonna go after him to rescue him. So what does that change? It doesn't change anything. And even after Aelin finds out that Archer orchestrated Nehemia's death, she still tells Kaol that she feels like she can't trust him just because of the whole secret keeping thing. And it's like, why? Why did you need to know that? Like, I get that it's your friend and you want to know if she's in trouble, but like, I this whole part of the series, it makes me so mad. It makes me so mad. Okay, I'll come out and I'll say it. I am a Kale and Selena shipper. I know. Throw tomatoes at me. Do what you want. Leave me lots of angry hate comments. Boost my engagement. Do what you gotta do. I don't know. I loved Kale and Selena's chemistry. I thought they had really good chemistry, and I thought they had a good thing going. And the thing that drove them apart was stupid and pointless. And I thought for sure that it was getting set up that they were gonna end up together. And then Sarah J. Maas wrote in Rowan, and she fell in love with him, and so now Rowan is endgame. All right, sure. All Rowan does, like, his only personality trait is just like being obsessed with Aelin. Also, if you skipped the recap and you don't care about context, Aelin and Selena are the same person. I am going to be flipping back and forth between the two names. I'm sorry. I know it's confusing. Anyway, the point of that is that Kale did nothing wrong, and we should stop hating him. You know who else did nothing wrong? Well, not nothing wrong. You know who else I need to defend, though, from the angry Throne of Glass stands? This man, Aedion. Yeah, Throne of Glass fans are gonna get really mad at me for this one, but Aedion was probably, like, my favorite character in the entire series. Yeah, and there's more. Now, Aedion does have a couple of moments where he's a jerk. Most people use the part that I mentioned in the recap where he throws Lysandra in the snow while she's naked and, like, yells obscenities at her, and, like, that was super uncool. But, like, at the same time, I also, like, completely understand his frustration. Like, it's not justified, but, like, it's kind of justified. Like, these two women whom he loves and trusts, Lysandra and his cousin/sister Aelin, have come up with a break glass in case of emergency plan that completely takes away his autonomy. And it's also a terrible plan. And I'm sure if they had told him this plan, he probably would have agreed to it. He is nothing if not a loyal servant. Hell, he might have even improved upon it. Because again, it's a terrible fucking plan. But to decide without him that he has to create heirs with Lysandra is completely insane. Like, what if they break up? Would you still have come up with this plan if they weren't already dating? Not to mention, they're making a guy who grew up without a father children he won't be able to raise, and it's implied that he was groomed and or sexually assaulted as a minor. See, this is what I mean when I say I don't understand why people dislike Kale and Aedion because of these, like, select bad things that they did. Because some of the stuff that Selena and Lysandra do, specifically Aelin, it's even worse. But it's like, do they plan on telling these hypothetical kids who their real parents would be? It doesn't make any sense. Not to mention that Lysandra gets caught pretending to be Aelin, like, 2 months into this ruse, and this was supposed to last a lifetime. So yeah, what Aedion does with his frustration is super mean, but I would argue that what Aelin and Lysandra did is much worse. The other thing that Aedion does that I didn't mention that I think is kind of justified in fans' hatred for him is in Queen of Shadows, he finds out that Rowan took the blood oath to Aelin, and he throws, like, a whole temper tantrum. He, like, throws shit and starts swearing because I wanted to take the blood oath. And by the end of it, Aelin's literally just like, dude, I can just have more than one person take a blood oath. It's literally not that serious. And why is that not your first question? Why was it not, can I still take the blood oath? He just assumed that he couldn't and started throwing things, and it's super bizarre. But those are really the only, like, big moments that he has where he's being, like, a major asshole. Like, other than those two things, Aedion's a pretty cool character. He feigns loyalty to the king and fakes all of his battle wins, and he gets away with it for years. He's smart enough not to put on the evil magic ring. He, like, gets mad at Kale through tears of relief after finding out that Aelin's alive and that she's Selena. I like that, like, his damage feels real and sympathetic. He's got a big, long, traumatic backstory, and no, baby boy, it's gonna be okay. And he's also one of the only main characters that doesn't have magic powers, and he's able to hold his own, and I think that's pretty cool. To me, he's kind of like the Aragorn of the group with just, like, a tad bit more arrogance, and I liked his points of view. But yeah, all of the Kale and Aedion hate makes no sense to me. I feel like all of their sins are, like, Ron Weasley tier crimes, and everyone loves Ron Weasley. So yeah, Aedion and Chaol are things that I like. Sue me. I like that even though Nesrin starts out as like a one note, not very full of depth, clearly just written in to be a Chaol love interest. As soon as Sarah J. Maas realizes that it's super forced and not working, she doesn't just like kill her off. She actually like develops her and, kind of gives her a life of her own. And her perspectives are also pretty interesting. Like the bird stuff was boring, I thought, in Tower of Dawn, but I liked her relationship with her prince. And I liked that she had like a racism backstory that she had to overcome. I thought it was handled pretty well. But yeah, she could have chosen to just write Nesrin out of the story as soon as she realized that it wasn't working. But Sarah J. Maas is a lot of things, but she is not lazy. Honestly, I don't think there's like a single lazy decision in the whole series, which is like really impressive, honestly. Honestly, I think part of the reason why this series is so like long and heavy-handed is because Maas worked really hard to develop her characters, and it shows. It really paid off. Good job. I really liked Chaol and Urine's romance, surprisingly, even though it was like really fast-paced and she just rushed through it all in the course of this book in this many pages. That's how long it took for them to meet, fall in love, and get married. But yeah, their romance is probably my favorite in the whole series, at least for people who actually end up together. Second would probably be Lorcan and Alid. Alright, this is gonna sound weird, but like, I think the sex scenes are written pretty well. It's kind of what Sarah J. Maas is known for, so I guess it's probably not too surprising, but yeah, they never felt like unnecessary or out of place. And I think they're written tastefully enough where like, I can read them in public without feeling too embarrassed, but like, they are sexy enough where it's not boring either. And speaking of things not being boring, my final point of things that I like is that this series is never boring. Even when it's kind of silly or just kind of messy, the drama is always top tier. The characters always have some sort of quest or like interpersonal struggle, and I am almost always interested in it. Part 3. Bad stuff. I think the first thing to mention here is that the plot gets really messy by the end. I mean, where do I even begin? The biggest issue is probably that the main villain isn't actually the main villain. I know that sounds confusing. Allow me to explain. The first main villain in the series is the king, but then it's revealed about halfway through the series that the king has actually been possessed by a demon this entire time, and that all of the evil doings was not actually him, and he was secretly good the whole time. And then he dies. And then the main villain is supposed to be Erewhon, who apparently had been possessing Duke Parrington this whole time, and Duke Parrington had been like a secondary villain up until this point. And that could have worked, but it doesn't for a few reasons. The first is just that every time we saw the king and Duke Parrington alone together before this reveal, the king was always giving the Duke orders. But if the Duke is possessed by the king of the Valge, or the demons, as I've been calling them, and shouldn't the Duke be giving the king orders? This basically means that the entire time Erewhon possessed Duke Parrington, he just didn't do anything and let this like random like other demon prince guy who happened to be possessing the king of the world they were trying to take over, he just let him do everything. So yeah, not only does it not make a whole lot of sense, it also makes Erewhon a smaller threat. The next is the biggest issue, which is that our characters don't actually have any personal connection to Erewhon, and we don't see Erewhon in his true form until the last book. Like, they technically know Erewhon because, again, he's been possessing the Duke this whole time, but as I said, he wasn't doing a whole lot when he was the Duke. It's like if in Harry Potter, for the first 4 books, like, nobody ever mentions Voldemort. You've never heard this guy's name before. And like, the whole time, like, Snape has been the main villain and like Quirrell was his sidekick or something. And then like at the end of the Goblet of Fire, Harry kills Snape and Quirrell does the like turban Voldemort at the back of the head reveal, and Voldemort on the back of Quirrell's head is like, "Hello, I am the main villain now. I've also been the main villain this whole time, and you just didn't know that. I was the one who opened the Chamber of Secrets. I stole the Sorcerer's Stone. I put your name in the Goblet of Fire." And Harry's like, "Wow, that's pretty bad. Did you also give me this scar? and kill my parents. And Voldemort's like, oh, no, that was Snape, and you just killed him. But I'm gonna be really big and bad from now on. And then you still don't see him until like the last battle, and like Neville kills him with an evil killing plant while Ron holds him down. I mean, really, the actual main villain after the king dies is Maeve. Maeve has personal beef with Aelin. She shows up early enough to establish a menacing presence, and she's always a looming threat after she's introduced, even in books that she's not in because of all those blood oathers. But in terms of like driving the main conflict for the whole series, Maeve doesn't actually have very much to do with that. If we're keeping up with the Harry Potter analogy, it's like if Bellatrix was exactly the same, except she didn't simp for Voldemort because Voldemort just wasn't around. Meanwhile, the only character who really has any beef with Erewhon is Dorian. And I guess to be fair, he is involved in killing Erewhon, but his relationship to him is basically non-existent because this is the first time that they're actually knowingly interacting. So it's very weak. There's a lot of other plot stuff that grinds my gears too. In the second book, there's a talking door knocker named Mort, and his existence makes me irrationally angry. He just like knows all of the lore that Selena needs to know, and he never actually like gives it to her until the plot calls for it to. She even like risks life and limb and very nearly does die and gets some pretty gnarly scars trying to get some lore from Baba Yellowlegs, and then after it turns out that he just knew all of that this whole time and like repeats it to her, and it's like, dude, she just almost died for nothing? Also, this is not a kids series. Why in God's name, in book 2, are we introducing a talking comedic relief doorknob sidekick character? If Throne of Glass ever does get an adaptation, I know for a fact that Mort is the first thing getting cut. Selena does multiple awful things that never get challenged by the narrative. The worst one is probably an Empire of Storms. So Selena / Aelin has just vomited. So Rowan, her partner, asks her, "Oh, are you pregnant?" And she says no. But then he says, "Have you been taking birth control?" Because in this universe, you can just like make like a birth control potion, like a plan B essentially. And it's implied that it's like pretty easy to make. And Aelin says, "No, actually. And I did it on purpose." Because even though we're in the middle of a war and it would be horrendous timing, I might die in this war and I would need an heir. And so I have just purposefully not been taking birth control so that I might produce an heir. And I didn't tell you about this until right now when you're asking me.
Give me just half a second. What the fuck?
So yeah, Aelin just like knowingly doesn't use protection on purpose to get pregnant and doesn't tell her partner. I feel like there's a word for that. And Rowan just like accepts it. He doesn't get mad at her. They don't argue about it. This doesn't cause like a rift or any tension in their relationship. In fact, after they officially get together, pretty much any of the tension that was originally in their relationship just disappears. Like they never have any problems after that ever again. I don't know why Sarah J. Maas did this, but my impression is just that she wrote Rowan and then like fell in love with him as she, oh wait. I took the Assassin's Blade book out because I wanted to read one of the novellas in it last night, and I forgot to put it back. Hold on. If you needed a reminder that I do indeed enjoy these books, there it was. I don't know why Sarah J. Maas did this, but my impression is that as Sarah J. Maas wrote Rowan into the story, she just fell in love with him and decided to make Aelin and Rowan so endgame that it's painful. Like, I don't know if you guys were keeping track during my recap, but Aelin and Rowan have not one, not two, but 3 magical bonds keeping them together. The first is the one called Karanam, which is like, I guess like a really intense connection that makes you like read each other's minds and maybe like feel each other's feelings, but mainly it just stops you from like the Valge demon happiness sucking. So it's like if in Stranger Things, instead of playing Kate Bush to get Vecna away, it just your friend just like taps you on the shoulder and like you're good. The second is the blood oath, which, you know, Aelin by the end of the story has so many blood oathers, so Rowan is not alone in this one. And the third is being each other's mates. I kind of glossed over this in the recap, but Fae have predetermined mates that are they're soulmates. They're basically soulmates. You only have one, and like once they're gone, you will never be as fulfilled by any other romantic relationship you may have. And like Karanam, it also allows you to feel each other's feelings, but like it's more intense. Like if, you know, they get hurt, you can like feel their pain essentially. And I mean, these are all cool concepts, but all three for the same two people is overkill. And I'm pretty sure the only reason Karanam even exists is so that Aelin and Rowan being mates could be a plot twist. Like they had to think that they had some sort of other magical bond in order for it to be a surprise that they have the big romantic magical bond. And on the topic of Aelin and Rowan and things I don't like about this series, I don't like that they ended up together. I'm sorry. A lot of people are gonna get really mad at me for this one. And to be fair, I don't hate everything about their relationship. I think the chemistry is there for sure. And after like book 4, I felt enough about it where I kind of just accepted it. But like if you think about it, Rowan is just like a really intense Kaol when you first meet him. He's far meaner than Kaol ever was, so like I didn't really like him at first for that reason alone. But like the idea is still the same. He has been assigned to train Aelin in some form of combat that she's already good at but needs to control, and they don't like each other at first, and he's pretty harsh on her, and you know, she starts bantering with him, and eventually he likes it, and so then they become friends, and then they fall in love. But the progression with Kaol was just so much smoother than with Rowan, because like I said, Rowan is way meaner to Aelin when he first meets her than Kaol ever was. And so he just has a lot farther to go, but he doesn't really have like a natural progression where he starts to like her. Like there's like little inklings here and there where he's like, oh, maybe she isn't so bad, but he still treats her exactly the same until he finds out that she was whipped in like the prison salt mine. So then he just immediately starts being nice to her, and they're besties now. Like he almost immediately goes from completely hating Aelin to being like a massive simp for her. And from then on, that's his only personality trait, just being obsessed with and completely dedicated to Aelin. It's his motivation for everything. It drives every single decision he makes. He like goes into a rage every time something happens to her. He growls at people who get snippy with her, but I'm not entirely sure how literal said growling is, because Sarah J. Maas uses the term growl extremely liberally. I just don't really connect with this guy because he doesn't have anything going for him outside of his relationship to Aelin. Meanwhile, it seems like originally Aelin was supposed to end up with Kaol, and it is set up way better. The progression from disliking each other to becoming friends takes up most of the first book, and by that point they've pretty much already established in their points of view that they're already like extremely attracted to each other. And again, he wasn't nearly as harsh, so it is a much more believable progression. And Kaol even has a good reason not to trust Aelin, because she's an assassin and she could betray him at any second. Rowan, on the other hand, has no reason not to trust Aelin. Aelin came looking for help from him. She has no reason to betray him Why is he being so mean to her? Crown of Midnight also ends with Aelin telling Chaol that she'll always choose him, so I guess that was just a lie. Then Sarah J. Maas invented Rowan, and she dropped Aelin and Chaol's romance immediately. On the topic of couples I don't like, I don't really vibe with Manon and Dorian. Again, I'm sorry. I mean, I definitely did enjoy them more than Rowan and Aelin, but like, it just kind of felt like a regression for Dorian. Falling in love with Dorian is one of Manon's main motivations for her redemption arc, so like, it's fine for her. But with Dorian, it's just him unlearning what he learned in book 1, and they don't even get together until book 5. So at the start of the series, Dorian is supposed to be like this massive womanizer, like he's sleeping with a new girl every week basically. Then he meets Aelin and he starts to change his behavior. He doesn't rush into anything with Aelin, and after she breaks up with him, he doesn't immediately go back to sleeping around. He waits until he finds someone that he likes. And he doesn't even have the chance to sleep with that girl before she gets her head chopped off. Then he meets Manon, and in the book, it's not explained like, oh, he's possessed, but he's coming back because he finally meets a girl that he's destined to love. No, it is like basically explicitly explained like, oh, he's very aroused by Manon's hotness. So now the playboy within is coming back, his true self. And then when he and Manon get together, they just immediately start hooking up, no emotional attachment whatsoever. And then, eventually they form an emotional attachment through hooking up, and they do talk about getting married, but they never actually do. In fact, their relationship is actually left kind of open-ended, but it's implied that they eventually officially get together in some capacity after the series ends. Speaking of regression, Kingdom of Ash is a huge regression in plot. I chalk it up to Sarah J. Maas getting a little too ambitious and having too many moving parts that she didn't really know what to do with. There are way too many characters, and in Kingdom of Ash, it is really obvious. Like, Rowan's cousin that we just met gets a POV. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, that one competitor in book 1 who you don't see for the rest of the series and then comes back again in Kingdom of Ash, he gets a POV too. And like, she's still introducing new named characters, and it's like, Sarah, we don't have time for this. This is the last book. We gotta wrap this shit up. I love how I didn't actually make a single snapping noise. There we go. And another problem on top of having too many characters is having too many characters with really similar names. I mean, first there's Aelin and Aedion, which doesn't sound bad when you say it out loud, but because the first 2 letters are the same when you read it in a book, you will often accidentally read, or I say you, I mean me, I will accidentally often read Aedion as Aelin, and I won't realize my mistake until I go, wait a second, Aelin isn't in this scene. What's happening again? And I have to go back and realize that I read Aedion as Aelin. There's Selena and Elena. There's also Evelyn, Gavin, and Brannon, and these people are often mentioned in the same breath because they are all Aelin's ancestors and parents. The most egregious example is Cairn and Cain, and they're both like secondary villains, one in the first book and one in the last book, and Cairn is just Cain but with an R in it. Sarah, do we need to give you access to a baby name website? This is getting ridiculous. But in all fairness to Sarah, I think she has a bit of a sense of humor with the fact that a lot of her character names sound similar because, well, I left this out of the recap because it's so beautiful. I love it. Sarah decides to use this similar name problem as a comedic moment in which, okay, so again, I neglected to mention this earlier, but Alid's last name is Locken, and she is a lady, and she and Lorcan get married, and because she is a lady, Lorcan has to take Alid's last name. So at the end of the series, Lorcan's full name is Lord Lorcan lock in. Anyway, I'm glad Sarah J. Maas was self-aware enough to poke fun at this. It is a very funny scene. Oh, and by the way, out of all these shit million characters, basically none of them die. No, I'm serious. Like, in the last book, the only good named characters that die are the 13, only about like half of which you remember their names and 2 of which you have an emotional attachment to, and even then, and Gabrielle. And that's it. Like, she doesn't even kill any of the characters that she's like just now introducing at the end. They all get to live too. And if a bunch of characters in the earlier books died too, this wouldn't be so bad, but a lot of those guys come out unscathed too. Sam and Nehemia die specifically to give Aelin motivation and trauma, which I'm not even gonna get into right now. Her parents are dead before the series even starts. A couple of Chaol's guards that were like super minor characters die about halfway through the series. Kaltane has like a little bit of a redemption arc, and then she sacrifices herself, and like that's literally it. Like, with the amount of characters in this high stakes, high fantasy, wartime drama, there are not enough deaths. I'm sorry. And speaking of lowering the stakes, Aelin and Dorian are way too overpowered. In Empire of Storms, Aelin mostly single-handedly decimates an entire army of giant bat creatures. In Kingdom of Ash, she really single-handedly evaporates an entire dam's worth of rushing water. Like, she's basically described as being invincible for a lot of this series. There's a Throne of Glass subreddit, and someone did the math. I can't remember if I took a screenshot of this post, but the amount of energy required to evaporate the amount of water that Aelin evaporated was equivalent to 6 million Hiroshima bombs. But we're still expected to believe that she doesn't stand a chance against Erewhon and Maeve when we have been given no evidence to support this. Like, up until the last book, Aelin never actually goes up against either of them and loses. Same thing with Dorian. He apparently just has the ability to just do whatever type of magic he wants to do. So, like, at first, when we find out that he has magic, we find out that he essentially has ice powers and the Force. So, okay, he's Elsa and Luke Skywalker. Got it. But then he learns how to shapeshift. So now he is Elsa, Luke Skywalker, and Mystique. And then he learns how to do Maeve's, like, mind control tricks. So he is now Elsa, Luke Skywalker, Mystique, and the Scarlet Witch. So he's basically unstoppable too. Dorian's invincibility is never really dealt with, and I think it's because having an invincible protagonist is, you know, your bigger fish to fry. So Sarah J. Maas did try to fix that. Keyword try. And look, again, I love that Sarah J. Maas is not lazy. I love that she can recognize when she wrote something that isn't working and she tries to fix it. But what she decided to do to fix this problem is so stupid. So Aelin sacrifices herself specifically to put Erewhon and the rest of the gods back in the portal or whatever. And her journey to this other, like, spirit realm strips her of her fire powers. But, like, for some godforsaken reason, she decides, hey, even though the entire reason that I'm here and am going to die was to get Erewhon out of my world, you can just not take Erewhon with you and just trade his soul for Elena's, because Elena's been helping me out this whole series. And the gods are like, no, actually, you're just gonna keep Erewhon and we're gonna destroy Elena's soul because we're, like, offended. So not only did Aelin just, like, completely out of nowhere decide to make her sacrifice and, like, everything that she and her friends have been doing for the last 5 books completely worthless, she also just, like, killed her friend from beyond the grave. But because she does this, Elena's goddess mother feels bad, so she gives her a portion of her fire powers and some world traveling powers so that she can travel back home. And then she like opens a hell portal and she kills all of the gods. But then she comes back, having lost her massively OP powers needed to kill Erewhon, when we wouldn't have even had to worry about Erewhon if she had just done what she was supposed to do. It's so random and so stupid, and I hate it. And like, if this was one of those things where the characters did everything they were supposed to do and it just didn't work, or if they missed something that had been set up earlier and you didn't even realize it, then like, I would be okay with this. But to have your protagonist just basically like actively sabotage everyone, it's so infuriating. But Sarah needed to dilute Aylin's powers somehow, so for some reason, this is what she ended up with. This leads into the next thing that kind of sucks, which is that the lore is convoluted and often contradictory. So it's explained that when people who use magic don't use magic for too long, it can boil over. And this happens to Aelin a couple times. But when Aelin exits the king's like magical magic barrier in Heir of Fire, why doesn't she immediately start shooting fire everywhere? And how come the magic that she had been saving up for about 2 months when Maeve was torturing her is the energy equivalent of 6 million Hiroshima bombs, but the magic that was laying dormant in her for 10 years just causes like a little forest fire and like a magnitude 1 earthquake? And how come Dorian can use his magic in the castle but Aelin can't? In fact, if magic is blocked out at all, how is it that the king and Duke Parrington are able to use their magic with the rings? Is it because there's an exception if it's Erewhon's magic? Because if that's the case, that doesn't explain how Dorian is able to use his magic. Is it because magic that comes from the king is the exception? Because if that's the case, then the rings and the word marks don't make sense. And also, the whole thing about like how to close the word gate, that doesn't make sense either. So if Erewhon comes to your world through the gate, you can just lock him up with the keys, but only temporarily. He'll come back eventually. But if you want him to stay there, you have to lock him up with the gods. But you can only do that if you are from the bloodline of the person who temporarily locked him up first. But if Elena hadn't done that, how would they have defeated him? Would she have had to sacrifice herself? And also, why is it still so hard to send this guy back to where he came from, even if you have all 3 of the word keys? Like, why all these qualifications? I feel like I missed something. Like, I read these books really fast. I probably did. But all of this predetermined stuff just totally takes agency away from Aelin. Pretty much everything that happens in her life can be explained away by some ancestor she had thousands of years ago deciding to lock a demon in a thing with the gods. Like, Arabin finding her and subsequently abusing her can be explained away by Elena's ghost compelling Arabin to save her. Nehemia's death was specifically to motivate Aelin, which, okay, yeah, let's talk about it. It's a problem. Nehemia is one of the only named black characters in the series, and yeah, there is a pretty big fantasy trope of character of color dying specifically to motivate the white protagonist. And yeah, it's pretty stupid. Hi, please excuse my appearance. I am editing this months later. This video is taking forever. Oh my god. I think I filmed this in like February and it's currently June. But I actually talked way less about this than I had planned on doing. I don't know how that happened. I was looking off a script. And there is more that I feel like I need to say about this issue. It deserves more scrutiny than I am giving it. I just said it's a problem and I didn't really explain why. So the real reason that this trope is such an issue and why people take such an issue with it is that, you know, it makes white people the main character. And yes, of course, it does just so happen that in this story, a white girl is the main character and we do have to further her story. But not only does this take away the agency of our white character, it's like everything is handed to her. Like, she doesn't actually have to like try, and like this does go hand in hand with the issue of Aelin not having agency, but it also takes away agency from Nehemia. She's not doing anything to further her own story or even the plight of her own people. She is a princess of a African-coded nation. It's stated outright that her people are being taken into slavery, very similarly to how it happened in real life. And rather than really focusing on the plight of her people, she kind of pivots into advancing the plot of our white protagonist when she has issues of her own. And her leaving kind of puts her people at extreme risk. And this issue was not handled well at all, I don't think. And I think there is, a way in which we can, we can still motivate Aelin by killing off Nehemia. However, I don't think it should be the main reason why Nehemia allows herself to die. I think it would have made more sense if she had done it specifically to be a martyr for her people so that she could motivate them to maybe, cause like a civil war or an uprising, which does happen in the books, but it just ends with all of them dying. It's not like a real battle. And as far as we know, there isn't like a whole movement in Nehemia's country starting up against the king. They're just still being taken as slaves, and if they rise up, they get killed. And yeah, it's not handled in the most sensitive way. It is very much just Black girl dies to advance the plot of white girl so that she can realize the hero within, because she can't do that herself for some reason. It's really messy, and yeah, it's not only is it like not feminist, it's also like white feminism, but like from an angle of like women need to be helped to realize that they can do the things that are feminist. It's really weird. It's really messy. And I definitely did not talk about it. I really didn't talk about it at all in the video. So that's me popping in several months later just to put that out there and to talk about why it's really a problem. So yeah, after Empire of Storms, Aelin pretty much has no agency. Like everything is just on a predetermined quest for her. Empire of Storms is also pretty egregious with this lore and plot stuff. Like for some reason, even though this is like the main couple, we don't see Aelin and Rowan's wedding. It happens off page and it's treated as a reveal after Aelin gets kidnapped. Like, I feel like if your main ship is getting married, you should show it to us as it happens and not hastily mention it later. There's a lot of things that are reveals that really shouldn't have been. Like Aelin getting Ansel and like the Prince of Wenland to show up is a reveal. I swear to God, half of Aelin's moves in the last 3 books are reveals, which is another problem because it almost makes it feel like she's not the protagonist anymore because like you don't know what she's doing, you don't know what she's up to. So yeah, let's talk about the order in which I read this series. I did not start with Assassin's Blade. And I don't recommend that you do, actually. Some people do recommend starting that way. I do not. It's a prequel. You shouldn't read it first. But I figured that, like most prequels, this isn't something that you need to read in order to understand the rest of the series. Like, if you wanted to watch the Star Wars movies for the first time, but you didn't want to watch the prequels, you could watch episodes 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 just fine without the knowledge of the prequels. You don't actually need those. But I especially didn't think that Assassin's Blade would be required reading because it's not even a novel. It is a collection of 5 novellas, but like they all happen to Selena over a linear time period, and like in pretty much all of them, events in one novella affects the events of the next novella, so like it really should have just been a novel. Like most aspects of this series, you technically don't need it to understand the rest of the series, but a lot of supporting characters in Assassin's Blade come back later on in the series and you're just expected to know who they are. And that's kind of a problem because it feels like the only reason this book was published is so that you know who these characters are when they show up. This is especially true for the assassin and the healer, which is Urine's story. All of the training and bonding that these 2 characters go through happens off page. You never experience it. Like, I feel like if you want to make the prequel book required reading, you have to actually write these details. So yeah, I thought that I didn't need to read Assassin's Blade. And in fact, I didn't actually ever plan on reading Assassin's Blade until I finished the series and I needed more. So what I ended up doing, I think before I started Queen of Shadows, I went on the fan wiki and I read a couple synopses for a few of the novellas so that I like sort of knew what happened, and so then I kind of knew who the characters were when they showed up. But it did still kind of make me pause when they showed up, and I was like, oh, wait, who's Lysandra again? Wait, Ansel's a girl? But also there was a good thing about it, because one thing that ended up being a reveal for me was the reveal that the assassin that Yrene knows and talks about in Tower of Dawn is Aelin. I mean, like, it's blatantly obvious that it's Aelin. But if you had taken Yrene's story out of Assassin's Blade and treated this like a reveal, whole thing would have been way better. Like, that's the one thing that should have been a reveal, and it didn't get one. So yeah, Assassin's Blade is weird. It's confined by the restraints of not being a novel and only existing to introduce other supporting characters, and it probably should have just been a real book, and it also shouldn't serve as our only introduction to these characters. Part 4, Adaptation Time. We're in the home stretch. I'm already feeling like this was a mistake. I feel like I'm gonna get so many weird comments now. Whatever, it's good for engagement. So anyway, this section is basically my pitch for a Throne of Glass TV show. I'm gonna outline what I think it would look like, and then I'm gonna say how I would want to fix all the dumb stuff. So, in my mind, Throne of Glass, the show, would be 6 seasons long. Books 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7 would have their own corresponding seasons. The novellas in Assassin's Blade would appear throughout the series in flashback sequences, and there would also be some new added flashback sequences that weren't in the books to flesh out the characters a little bit more. And Tower of Dawn, in my mind, would be released as like a 2-part like special episode thing in between seasons 5 and 6, or in between the seasons corresponding with books 5 and 7. And in the Assassin's Blade flashbacks? And in the Assassin's Blade flashbacks, Aelin's scenes with Yrene, Ansel, and Lysandra would be more fleshed out so that when they show up later, it feels more like these are characters like that you care about a little bit more. I'm not saying that like I didn't care about these characters when I read them in the book. I'm just saying that I wish I could have spent more time with them, and I think that this would be a good way to address that. The show would be rated MA, not because of the sex scenes, although that would, you know, be a little bit of a requirement later, but honestly just because there's a couple like somewhat graphic death scenes, and you could just show that for the people who are into that. Not really my thing. I thought it was cool reading it, but I think actually watching it would make me a little squeamish. But for the fans of the book, you can appease them, give it an MA rating so that you can get your crazy death scenes. And also, I know there's no book rating system, but based on like age recommendations, the standards are a little bit different than in movies and TV. So there are like the sex scenes and the graphic deaths, but like there aren't any F-bombs. And I feel like there are a lot of places where Sarah J. Maas says, like, she swore creatively or cursed under her breath, and it feels like there's supposed to be an F-bomb there. So if the show is rated MA, you can just put an F-bomb there. Basically, it would kind of be a feel of, like, Game of Thrones meets Euphoria. Except unlike Euphoria, since we're planning this out in advance, you don't have 5 years in between seasons. We're getting 1 season every year, like how God intended. So there's this song, Where Is Your Rider, by the Oh Hellos, and I totally imagine that song to be like the theme song of the show. Honestly, I just want a lot of Oh Hellos songs in the show. I don't know why I listen to the Oh Hellos music and I think Throne of Glass. I think their music really works for like the tone that I'm trying to go for here. And whatever you do, do not put the show on Netflix, because they will cancel that shit after 2 seasons like they did with Shadow and Bone if it's not at like Stranger Things ratings. Now, here come my suggestions for changes to the source material. Book fans, please brace yourself. Okay, Maeve is now the main villain. Maybe you can do like a bait and switch where like you're teasing Erewhon and you think that he's gonna be the main villain, but like maybe it turns out that like Maeve was directing him all along, or like using his powers for her gain that like she wasn't able to use herself or something like that. Maybe like the one power that Erewhon has over Maeve is that like he can use the Wordstone rings and collars, and for whatever reason like Maeve can't do that. Maybe she's cursed, or maybe you have to like be from a certain bloodline or something, and so maybe she's been like manipulating him to use them, but he like splits off from her like right before the last book or right before the last season, maybe, I don't know. Or hear me out, you can reveal that Maeve is Erewhon. And like the reason that she can't use the wordstone collars and rings on Aelin in the last season is because like Elena like put like a protection spell over her and like she can't be possessed or something like that. And maybe like instead of there being like a ring or a collar nearby, they start a rumor that there's like a like famed magical item that can break through protection spells nearby. And maybe like she was only using the rings and the collars in Aralea and not in like Doranel and Wendlin because like she was using it like as a cover so that people wouldn't figure out that she was secretly Erewhon the whole time. Look, I don't know. We can work out the kinks later. To me, this is just already a better villain situation than the one we got. Mort doesn't exist. All of the information that Mort gives us is given to us by Elena. Chaol actually does betray Aelin's trust involving Nehemia's death. Maybe like have the king direct him to not put his best men on the job and put like his most mediocre men on the job. And Chaol can like say something so that he's still sympathetic, like, but sir, won't she die? These men aren't equipped to fend off crazed assassins. And the king can be like, that's my point, but we have to put some protection so that we're not implicated in this. And Chaol's like, but why do you want Nehemia to die? This doesn't seem like a good call. And the king can be like, she's a thorn in my side, I want her gone too. And so then Chaol kind of has to wrestle with that, but you know, his like sort of fatal flaw in those earlier books is that he's loyal to a fault, so he does it anyway. He's still sympathetic, but he also still actually betrays Selena in that series, in that season, in that book, in this season that corresponds to the book where this happens. On the topic of Nehemia's death is not to motivate Aelin. It is instead to start an uprising in her home country, and she like sort of purposefully makes herself a martyr, maybe knowing that she'll motivate Aelin to do this, but maybe instead she says something to Elena like, I don't care if this means that I'm not going to be able to guide Aelin. All I care about now is my people. I don't care about the word key thing. I don't know. I respect that more. Make Rowan less of an asshole. Get rid of that whole thing of Aelin trying to get pregnant and not telling Rowan, because, like, yikes. Chaol and Nezrin are never romantic interests. They're just besties. Maybe even make Nezrin gay, and instead of her, like, getting together with the prince, have her get together with a princess. There are gay people in this series. I didn't mention this before, but they're all like supporting characters, and Aedion is bi, but he ends up with Lysandra. I'm not saying that makes him any less bi. I myself am bi and am with a man, but still. Chaol and Aelin actually have a conversation like grown-ups and discuss how she changed her mind and doesn't want to be with him anymore, instead of them having this like temper tantrum. Although they're really not adults. Aelin is 19 and I think Chaol is like 21. But I don't know. I'm 23, so I feel like a lot of people I knew were more mature. Actually, no. Actually, fine, you can keep that. Kill off more characters. I can feel the book fans like squirming in their seats right now, holding their breath, seeing which characters I want to kill off that they were happy made it out alive. Sorry in advance. Here are some suggestions for characters who I think could die. Aedion. I know I just went on a long rant defending Aedion from the haters, but I actually think that killing him off could possibly redeem him for some of these people. So like when Aedion apologizes to Lysandra for throwing her in the snow naked, which again was a very uncool thing that he did, he could be like, I'm so sorry, I love you, please forgive me. And Lysandra can say something along the lines of like, that's not how you treat people that you love. Then when Gavriel dies, you can change the circumstances of Gavriel's death so that he can have Aedion sort of like redeem himself as like a general and a military leader by giving him the opportunity to save a bunch of people. So like he dies to save Aedion so that Aedion can save other people. And maybe like in the moment, Gavriel can say like, I was never able to be a father to you. I was never able to be a loving father to you, but I want to do this for you as an act of love, as a fatherly act of love or something like that. And then this gives Aedion an epiphany that he's not treating the people he loves the way that they should be treated. So then much later on, maybe like not even in the same episode of this TV series, as like some fighting is going on, he sees Lysandra fighting some bad guys and like she's losing really hard. Like if they get one more swing in her, like she's done for, they're gonna kill her. So then maybe he like runs in there and saves her and dies doing it, like gets stabbed immediately, or like he takes an arrow for her or something. And Lysandra can be like, oh my god, Aedion, why would you do that? And then he can be like, well, this is what you do for people that you love. And then he dies. Number 2, Lorcan. Look, I love Lorcan and I love Elide, but that scene where she like gets on the horse and saves him would have been so much more powerful if he had sort of like sacrificed himself. Because mind you, at this point in the book, he and Elide are like not actually on good terms, because he was the reason why Aelin got kidnapped and why there was like the huge battle in Empire of Storms. It's because he called in the Navy. So maybe when Elide goes to save him and there's like that huge like rushing water from the broken dam coming towards them, he can be like, look, I appreciate that you went through all of this effort to come out and save me, but I'm carrying too much weight on this horse and this horse is never going to be able to outrun this water. And I need to make it up to you. I betrayed you in the last one. So I am going to sacrifice myself so that you can make it out alive. Thank you for making an effort, but it's not going to work. And then he just gets off the horse and he dies. Either Evangeline or Fleetfoot. Okay, Fleetfoot, for those unaware, is Celaena's dog, and Evangeline is the little girl that Lysandra watches over. I'm sorry, I know that's really dark. But like, I'm sorry, you can't have it both ways. You can't have both a kid and a dog in your high stakes, high fantasy wartime story and have both of them make it out alive. You have to kill off one of them. So either the kid dies or the dog dies, preferably the dog, because you know, it's kind of like a how far we've come thing since the dog is introduced in the first book. Dorian gives the dog to Celaena as a gift for, I think, like Christmas. And if it feels like too much to kill one or both of them, then just like have the dog run away or something. Like she can just get a new dog at the end. Fenris should have just gotten an insta-death when he broke the Maeve blood oath at the end. It actually makes no sense that he doesn't. And I also feel like the story is just stronger if it has characters who are dying specifically to save the protagonist so that she can save the world. And there was no reason why he shouldn't have just died immediately as soon as he was able to break the blood oath. That was very stupid. We don't even know Fenris that well. We've only spent one other book with him. He can die. Literally any of the shit million supporting characters that only talk a few times that we barely know. Do it the J.K. Rowling way. The only thing you should do the J.K. Rowling way. You know, kill off your Lavender Browns, your Tonkses, your Colin Creevies. They're not doing much anyway. My votes are for Killian, Borta, and Nox. Okay, that's enough death. Just kidding. Let's kill two birds with one stone by fixing two problems at once. The Aelin being overpowered problem and the word gate scene. In the Empire of Storm season, Aelin, Lysandra, and Aedion should run into Erewhon himself, if we are keeping him in the story, and not just like some random guy that he happens to be possessing at the time. And like Aelin isn't strong enough to beat him, so they retreat. Then later, Aelin and Manon should actually be present for the start of the big battle with the Maeve. And maybe like as Maeve is like heading toward the shore where Elide is and they don't realize it's what she's doing, Aelin can face Maeve head on and she loses and like barely escapes. And then like in that moment, then Dorian can have the idea of having Aelin and Manon like go through the mirror portal so that they can get the big massive lore dump. Then in the Kingdom of Ash season, they should decide to forge the lock and close the gate the exact same way they do in the books, but it should happen before the big battle at Aniel with the dam. So everything goes exactly how it does in the book, except when Aelin is facing the gods in like the spirit world or whatever, she can be like, hey, so the king took Dorian's place. You've already taken a Nameless, and Nameless is your price. Can I go home now? And they say, no, like you've already come too far. You have to like stay here in eternity in like a space vacuum or whatever. So then Aelin still does ask for a bargain, but she doesn't ask for the same bargain that she does in the books. Instead, she asks to trade her soul so that she doesn't have to stay in the space vacuum forever for Elena's, rather than Erewhon's soul for Elena's. Essentially, even though her biggest fear is being a slave, she offers like eternal slavery and servitude to the gods so that she can at least not be in a lonely space vacuum the rest of her life, and Elena can stay in the afterlife with her husband. But then the gods still do the thing that they do in the books, and then they still say, you can keep Erewhon because we're so offended that you would ask for something for yourself. So then Aelin gets angry. She's like, what do you mean we can keep Erewhon? The entire reason I'm here is to get rid of Erewhon from our world. Why would I ever do anything to counteract this entire big sacrifice that I made to get rid of Erewhon? Why would I ever allow this? Please don't do this. That's very stupid. And then rather than Elena's mom just like giving her powers, Aelin can look to her and be like, are you gonna allow this? They just disintegrated your daughter right in front of your eyes. Are you not going to do anything about this? This way she actually has agency in what happens here. And she motivates Elena's mom to be like, actually, yeah, I am going to do something. So she gives her godhood powers and like her portal opening powers. And the exact same thing happens in the book, except when she comes back to her body, she's like, not only am I immortal fae, I have like extreme turbo fire powers, and it's the amount of powers that she has in like the beginning of the books. So rather than her losing her powers, she actually gains some power, and we are unable to see just how much it is until we get to the dam scene and she uses her power worth 6 million Hiroshima bombs and evaporates the water. This helps the story in a lot of ways. It gives Aelin more agency, it makes the scene make more sense, and it can also like keep that caveat of not being able to lock Erewhon away without making their entire effort pointless, because, you know, now she has these cool fire powers that she didn't have before. Like, she had fire powers before, but like, you know, she wasn't powerful enough to stop them. And then in the final battle, she can go and actually use them against Maeve and Erewhon. There's also a line in that final scene where she's trying to distract Maeve and Erewhon, and she says to them, I am a god. And it's a really cold line, it's really badass, but my issue with it is that like, she's not a god. She is her most powerless that she's ever been. So instead, she can literally have like the powers equivalent to godhood. And it's like a surprise to them, like, oh shit, she's not kidding. She is a god. And it's so much more badass that way. I almost wonder if the addition of like getting rid of Aelin's powers was like a last minute thing that Sarah J. Maas did, because that I am a god line doesn't make sense with that added notion. I mean, I guess Aelin is kind of a narcissist, so like maybe even though she is at her most powerless, she still feels like a god. Maybe that's what she was going for. I don't know. It also brings Aelin's start as an assassin and eventual slave full circle, because now she is willing to actually willingly be a slave if it means doing something nice for another person, which at the beginning of the series, she would have avoided that at all costs. And she's still kind of like a trickster when she like opens up like the hell portal, but she's doing it like out of retribution. So she's still like an assassin and a trickster, but now she has more of a moral compass. Anyway, this is why I need an adaptation, because all of this would have been so cool in the books and we don't get it. So that's it. That's everything I wrote. So Throne of Glass is a series that I really like. I really enjoyed reading it. And if you enjoy reading series that, you know, have a lot of lore, have a lot to talk about, then I recommend it. If you're the type of person who isn't into this sort of thing, and you don't like mess and you just want to read like a thoroughly good book with little to no flaws, this is probably not for you. But if you just want like drama and entertainment and exciting characters, then yeah, I would recommend this series. I liked it. I thoroughly enjoyed the experience of reading it. It is not perfect, but I think this is a series that is kind of ripe for a good adaptation. Now, I think that it would be very easy for an adaptation of this series to go wrong, but with the right people and with the right mindset, you could very much improve this series, and I would personally love to see it. So anyway, this was my big return to YouTube that nobody was looking forward to except for me. In the last couple years since I've uploaded a YouTube video, I have since graduated college and moved to a new city and have a job, and I work night shift, so I now have all day to make YouTube videos now. So I'm hoping that this means that I will get to do this more often. I don't think the giant undertaking of an hour-long video is going to happen anytime soon because it's been a pain in the ass so far. I would like to do it again, but probably not for every single video because again, it's so much work. But if you liked this video and you want to see more videos like it, maybe you want me to read the ACOTAR series or any of the other series that I need to read, then let me know in the comments below. Throne of Glass fans watching, please let me know if you agree or disagree with my takes in the comments below. I expect that you will disagree with many of them, and all I can say to that is cope. No, I'm kidding. I'm sorry. But thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in another YouTube video again soon. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I would really appreciate that. Bye! Also, while I'm here rambling, I do just want to say that I do have like casting choices in mind for like a lot of the characters in this series, and I posted some of my like dream castings to a Facebook group that I'm in, and I got absolutely destroyed, which is so stupid because there are people in that exact same group who will submit their dream castings, and it's all comprised of like 40-year-old actors who were all in the Vampire Diaries, and it's like, these characters are in their late teens and early 20s. What are we doing? I got so much of like, this character doesn't look like that. I don't care what they look like. I don't care if they look like the actual character description in the book. The description does not mean anything to me. And also, who cares if they don't have the right hair color? Because like...
Wig, okay.
Wig, did you just say wig?
Yes.
I know, wig. I feel that already.
What is wig? What is wig?
No, it's not your language. It's just for us. Wig.
Also, before people start commenting weird things, I'm recreating an outfit from the book where she dyes her hair red because I have red hair. So I swear I'm not like dressed like this for male attention or whatever weird people say. I have a boyfriend. I get as much male attention as I could possibly want.